used to go to the doctor and this is all you got now. Now you have options of how you want to do it. So this was a sales marketing DVD for the drug. So by them marketing and selling it, every time they talked to the brother, the European, who was taking the medication, he was doing yoga. I said, now that's interesting, because the brother wanted me to see this and see what I got from it. I said, one brother, you need to do more yoga. Forget the medication, because where the lie is, the truth is there. Wherever there's a lie, the truth occupies the same space. It depends on the level of consciousness, insight that the individual has who's looking into that particular direction or that particular area.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So I looked and I said, dang, now when he wasn't doing yoga, and he's talking about, you know, him taking the medication. When he wasn't doing yoga, and it was about 4 or 5 scenes, and he wasn't doing no, you know, no rinky-dink yoga, no commercial yoga. He was really getting fully into the postures, like he was really into yoga. And when he wasn't drinking yoga, in other DVDs, he was drinking tea.
How would you like your tea? With milk, sugar, honey, lemon, or with a touch of heart? And the Cantonese practice of yum cha, tea drinking. Hong Kong's tea culture has over 150 years of history behind it. There are many fascinating forms and practices associated with it.
Before we could get it on, there was an ancient Chinese tradition we had to honor.
So today, the master is going to serve you some tea to make you be released and be relaxed for your nice competition.
Serving green tea before a fight is a ritual that dates back hundreds of years. The monks believed both the action of making the tea and its calming aroma helped to focus a fighter's mind and center his qi. Green tea is rich in resveratrol, a naturally occurring antibiotic that many researchers believe keeps the metabolism functioning at optimum levels. I don't know if it was the tea or not, but I was beginning to feel like a full-fledged warrior.
You can feel the combination of meditation and tea drinking.
I'm going to start drinking tea before all my fights.
He was drinking tea. So I said, brother, you need to drink more tea. Now, I had been doing some research on my own about, you know, looking, because what I do is I get all the different health books from old to new. And I look up all the ailments that are plaguing our people in these different books, and I compare the different information in them. So I was going through one of them, and I looked, I actually had bipolarism in there, it had schizophrenia in there, and it mentioned yoga in there. That's how I was able to compare. Because if I hadn't read those books before that, I would not have been able to have that general insight into what the DVD was implicating. It would be no way I could have done it. But since I read the other books, I said, oh, it did mention yoga. It said that yoga, through people aligning their energy, that knocks out these different mental disorders that they have. That yoga is a cure for most mental disorders that people are going through. I said, man, this is really interesting. So what that taught me about American culture and mental illness is what I had further become enlightened to just studying on the path of enlightenment. And what that is that in America, we're not taught self-knowledge. In America, we're not even aware that we have a self outside of our materialism. The only self we are aware of, normally, the average individual, is the one who needs a different material object. Whether it's for this reason, that for school, for this or that, all we see ourselves as the consumer self. We have no awareness of our internal consciousness as an entity. We're not taught that in the school systems. So we're always graded and we're always taught by externalities. No proper internal relationship is developed between a person's self and their self. So the fact that people don't have any sign of mental illnesses is really miraculous. Because we have not been given any type of internal development. We've been taught dogmatically. So it has not really allowed us to really strengthen our internal muscles.
Psychiatrists and psychologists use the DSM to label 450 million people worldwide as mentally ill. a total equal to the populations of France, Italy, Germany, Canada, Australia, the United Kingdom, and Russia combined. While sales of the psychiatric drugs they push have topped $27 billion annually, funding from world governments for these patients gross psychiatry $440 billion a year. And much of this money comes from the diagnosis and drugging of our most trusting and vulnerable.
We have swallowed all manner of poisonous certainties fed us by our parents and school teachers. If the race is to be freed from its crippling burden of good and evil, it must be psychiatrists who take the original responsibility.
Brock Chisholm's declaration typified the psychiatric onslaught aimed directly at our school system.
They actually said that the purpose was social control, not to pass on knowledge, not to give him something so that he can go into the world of work.
In 1950, psychiatrists and psychologists from around the world met at the White House to propose a total reorientation of the public school system.
The White House Conference on Mental Health in the 1950s was a landmark that served to bolster the idea that schools would serve their communities better as mental health clinics than they would as institutions of learning.
In the early 60s, the world of psychiatry started to really go places in this country. Little by little, it came into our schools, our educational system.
And by 1965, it was written into law. Psychiatrists were given the green light for the wholesale labeling and drugging of school children.
A child is labeled ADD or ADHD the minute he can't sit still for a 10-15 minute period of time, or he talks constantly, or ignores the teacher completely. That will get him and earn him an ADD or ADHD label.
The labeling of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, went into full swing in 1987. Within 1 year, 500,000 American children would be diagnosed as ADHD. By 1994, that number had soared to 4.4 million. In response to widespread public alarm at this apparent epidemic of mental disease, the U.S. government-funded National Institutes of Health assembled a panel of prominent doctors and psychiatrists to explain to parents and educators exactly what ADHD was.
I would like any member of the panel to describe a typical ADHD in terms of symptomatology. Mark, would you like to? Since you see them in your practice.
I think the panel has been frank, and the difficulties here are immense in terms of these. It is hard. It's very hard to know how to answer this question. They cannot, even when they are as if driven by a motive. There are some good clinical descriptions. And I think, I think part of the problem is the profession keeps changing the diagnosis.
At this time, we do not have a diagnostic test for ADHD. Therefore, the validity of the disorder continues to be a problem.
But this shocking admission did not stop school psychiatrists. 2 years later, the number of American students diagnosed with ADHD had shot up to 6 million. Today, 20 million children worldwide are labeled with some form of learning disorder, a diagnosis often made in a matter of minutes.
We would sit behind a two-way mirror along with the parents. We would then look at the child. We would do small manipulative activities with them to see where their deficit was. It was wrong what we were doing. We were looking at a 5-minute glimpse of this child's life and saying, okay, here you go. Here's a little pill, take it, you'll be fine.
Those little pills like Ritalin, Adderall, and Concerta are classified by the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration as highly addictive substances, right along with cocaine, heroin, and methamphetamine.
When I was on the Ritalin, it made me just feel like totally different, like I wasn't even who I was.
I was, flipping out, was twitching, going crazy.
I felt like I was out of it all the time, like I wasn't there. I wasn't human.
You're just a zombie, pretty much. You do what you can just to get by and just don't do anything extra.
My mother never teased me, but she thought I really had ADHD and I was wrong, and I had something wrong with me. So I thought she'd feel bad and feel sorry for me if I died. But then again, I thought that she would miss me a lot, and I also love her a little more than I wanted to kill myself. And so I stopped when I realized that.
The abundance of prescription medications created a new income source for kids, selling their meds to their schoolmates.
It's called kitty cocaine. They take the Ritalin and they just repackage it and they sell it on campus to the kids because it's like speed.
I figured if I was gonna do drugs, I might as well make it worth it. And I ended up doing street drugs, and then I ended up getting into it really bad.
We're looking at marijuana and other things as being gateway drugs, and actually the so-called medications are a greater gateway drug.
The Ritalin drugs are backfiring big time because if the child is already disruptive and he takes cocaine, he's going to be a lot more disruptive after he's taken it. It is not going to calm him down.
Boom, she got on the drugs and her personality changed, her behaviors changed, they became erratic and dark and violent, and it was just a nightmare.
He kept having adverse reactions, becoming very, very angry. He could not control his behavior, he couldn't control his temper.
He was on 5 different psych meds, Prozac and lithium, and he was 7 years old. And he was unable to function. He would have rages and then crying and all kinds of just violent rages, grabbing knives and all of this.
The list includes 15-year-old Kip Kinkle withdrawing from Prozac when he shot 22 classmates, killing 2 after murdering his mother and stepfather at his home in Springfield, Oregon. 18-year-old Jason Hoffman on Effexor and Celexa when he opened fire at his California high school, wounding 5. 15-year-old Sean Cooper on a mix of antidepressants when he shot students in Idaho. And 17-year-old Eric Harris on Luvox when he and partner Dylan Klebold killed 12 classmates and a teacher in the bloodiest school massacre yet, Columbine.
And all of this overshadows the very reason children came to school in the first place, to get an education. Since 1970, the United States has fallen from 9th to 28th place in worldwide academic standing. While during that same period, the number of American school children labeled with learning disorders has skyrocketed, and the sales of ADHD drugs have multiplied 32 times.
Children don't ask for psychiatric drugs. Children don't ask to be diagnosed. They don't want to be called crazy. So you ask the classic Roman question, legal question, cui bono, who benefits? The people who make the diagnosis.
Psychiatry should actually go into government, that politicians should listen to psychiatrists. Psychiatrists should be in every parliament and should direct and monitor political activities.